Do we get one of those?
Okay, we're going to start the video again, and we're starting where we left off.
So I had decided at that point that I'd got my new hips in, I could drive again, and I fell back in love with my car, and I decided, okay, she needs to have some loving care taken. So I started looking around for a good place that could do a restore on the car, and one thing led to another. I ended up talking to a guy that actually did the painting for one of the better German places here in town in Bend, and he recommended Canyonado, which is in Slayton, Oregon, which is close to Salem, the other side of the hill. And so I talked to, and I can't remember his name right now, but I talked to him, and he said that's not a problem, and come on over to his shop, and that next week would be a good time because the Ferrari Club of Portland was coming to his shop because that was his specialty, was Ferraris. And so they were having a champagne thing there, and there was a couple of the Ferraris that he was getting ready to turn over to the owners. So I went, and he had three Porsches in the bay, and he had two or three Ferraris, and two of them were ready. And these were older Ferraris. These were probably 80s, mid 80s cars. With one of them was a big 12-cylinder job, and they were beautiful. So I decided to go ahead and have him do it. So he gave me an estimate, and it was going to end up being around $8,000 for the exterior. And I thought, okay, I can do that. So I drove the car. At that time, of course, we went to the desert. So I drove the car over in September when the weather was good, dropped it off, and we figured I'd get it the next year in April or something like that. Well, it turned out that he found more issues that had to be taken care of, and I told him I wanted it done perfectly. So I'll give you an example. The headlights on that car have a little recessed thing underneath there, and even though it's never been any place where there's salt or anything, still it gets moisture inside there, and it rusts. So those that whole area had to be redone, and new light fixtures and stuff put in there. And it was he had a lot of work, and so he called me, and he basically said that if it's not a big deal, I probably won't get it done in June like we talked about, but I'll probably get it done by August. So right about August or September timeframe, I got the car back for I think a week. I drove it back here, drove it back, and then I was going to take it back to him because the guy that was doing his interiors was he was someplace on vacation or whatever, and I wanted to drive it. So I got the car for about a week, and then drove it up to him, and then his guy was going to do the interior, and we were headed for the desert again. So I figured, okay, you have the winter to do it. Well, something happened, and the guy didn't make it, and when I went to pick up the car the next year in May, the only part of the interior had been done, and he showed me some pictures of it, and I didn't like the way it was. In the original 911, there's a rear deck, a flat deck area, and there's a little lip there, and then it tapers down to where the little bumper seats go. Well, he hadn't done that properly, and it was slanted, and I didn't like it at all. So I basically decided that I would find some other place. So I went to German Master Tech here in Bend, and they looked at the car, and they agreed with me that it wasn't wasn't done right, and they said it would be expensive, but they would use all Porsche kits. And I said, okay, how long? And he said it would probably take him 3 or 4 months to finish it. And so they stripped it down, and then they told me they couldn't get the kits for maybe 3 months because they were backlogged in Germany at that time. So they gave me boxes of all the interior stuff, the headrests, the side panel things, everything. And one of the things is kind of a go backward, but one of the things that when Bob had rebuilt the whole thing, it was about a year later when I had trouble with the window cranks. So he rebuilt all of those too. I mean, literally, there was no mechanical system in that car that wasn't rebuilt. So anyway, they finally got the kits back, but it was in wintertime, and we were gone. And so I didn't pick it up until, I guess it was probably April, late April. And they had pretty much finished it, but they had some questions. I had a custom rear speaker enclosure put in that sits on the back deck, and it's low profile. And the speakers are 6x9, and they're 3 ways, so they'll handle up to 100 watts. And so they wasn't sure what I wanted to do about that, and I told them that it needs to be, everything inside the car needs to be, the same color, the same thing. So they went ahead and fixed that, and that took another month or so. And then I got it back, and it was perfect. It was perfect inside, and it was perfect outside.
So German
Master Tech.
And they put in German vinyl.
They put in
carpet
they bought kits from, rather than attempting to do anything themselves with an upholstering type thing. You can go to Porsche and buy a kit. You can buy a kit for the rear, for the side door, the passenger door. You can a new, the glove box area. All of that you could buy as kits.
And the seats were they restuffed or
the seats were
leather?
Done by,
they're leather, aren't they?
Yeah, the seats were done by Bob Grensby. He had a shop that used leather, and what he did is he had them rebuilt and then stuffed a little bit so they're a little softer, and then leather.
The frames were rebuilt too, right?
Yes,
painted and all that.
Everything was redone.
How about the dash pad?
The dash pad was redone when they are notorious for getting a crack if they're in the sun, right where the little speaker grill is. And I've had that thing replaced 3 times, but when they did it at Canyon Auto, they put a new one in, and it's been in the garage ever since. So it's literally, it gets bad when it sits in the sun. That's where the problem is. So.
Yeah, this car has been in sunny, dry conditions, but it's been garaged almost all its life. Yeah.
Especially the last. I got, let's see. I got my hips replaced in 2011, and I was able to drive it through about 2016. And then I started having some different health problems, and so I didn't drive it very much. I maybe got 300 or 400 miles because I wasn't going to drive it in the wintertime here because they put cinder on the road, so that wasn't going to happen. And I wasn't going to drive it in the rain. And at that point, I got kind of used to the Dodge truck that I have, and that's what we used when we went camping or photo shooting. So it just went for a cruise every so often.
Right. Keep it warmed up, fire it up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when you did the mechanical stuff, you got a new clutch and pressure plate, all that stuff. I saw on the receipts.
Yeah.
And getting back to the body, the floors are all original. It looks like. I mean, everything's original.
Right.
Which is really nice.
Now, if I recall correctly, the original clutch was lower tension. And what he did is he put in, he told me it was a 90-pound clutch. So you'll notice when you push in on it, you got to push. but it's a centrifugal clutch system, and if you've got to get the revs up because it has a aluminum flywheel, and basically there is not a lot of inertia there. If you pop that clutch when it's sitting in idle, it'll kill it automatically. So there's a touchy thing to that whole thing. But the transmission was definitely repairs, and at the time that it was repaired, there wasn't any problem with the spacer rings that basically slow it down so that you can shift in between. So you don't have to double clutch this thing in order to shift. Now I say that with one minor thing, which was this model of car and year always was a beast to get started. And that, of course, is because if it's cold, the injection system is very rich and it's easy to flood. So you have to be kind of touchy with that. Once it's warm, it starts in a dream. All you get to turn the key and up it goes. And the same thing is true with the trans. Sometimes you'll get into a situation because the linkage is very, very tight. You'll get in a situation where it doesn't want to go into first, and then what you have to do is put it in neutral, drop the clutch, and then it'll go in. Because the synchro rings basically are, they have to match up, otherwise it's very tight in the space.
I'm not even sure there is a synchro for first gear in these 915s, is there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, there is? Okay. Well, what else is there? I mean, that's pretty comprehensive for the 72 hardtop T with E internals, owned 47 years,
Yeah.
West Coast car, mostly restored. The original stuff is still there, which is great, and original tool kit,
Yeah.
and just meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I probably made mistakes on. When I was able to drive it again after my hips, I had MasterTech turn the gauges and put a Momo steering wheel in the racing wheel, which I prefer just for the way it handles, because the old one was, you had to, it was plastic and you had to wrap it, and it was big. And I should have kept that, but they wanted it and were willing to trade me straight across for the racing wheel. So
Yeah, I'll have to find one. Yeah, it'd be nice to have that. They're out there. A couple,
So-
600 to 700, 800 bucks, I think.
So this car's had some interesting. Once the engine was done, I was so shy about taking it any place where it could get damaged. So I was one of these guys when you had a shopping center that had their car diagonal way out in the fucking toolies.
You're not the only one that does that.
Yeah, and it amazed me how many people would give me the stink eye,
Yep.
over that situation. And I had more than one time I would have people park right next to me so that I'd have trouble getting out in that situation. I'd have to narrow it around, and they did it on purpose.
Of course.
But and then I did have a situation where we were going someplace. We were going to dinner or something, and we pulled in to a mini market to get something. I think we were out in a cruise on the weekend, and we were going to grab some stuff. And I pulled in, and Lynn was with the car, and there was a car next to us that had like 3 kids in it and a wife. And the kids, I didn't notice anything, but when I came back out, Lynn was really pissed. And apparently one of the kids had slammed the door open and bounced it right into the rear fender guard on the Porsche and put a dent in there. And so when I saw it, I was pissed. And so I started talking to her about that. I don't know what I was going to tell her other than, you got to make your kids speak. And unfortunately, Lynn understands Spanish. And so she told me afterwards what the woman was telling her kids. She's saying, she basically told the kids, don't worry about it. It's an old, rich, fat man. We don't pay any attention to them. I thought, oh, isn't that wonderful? So, but that car is when I used to drive it around here in the summertime. I just cruise around through town and around. Just there's a nice loop where you head up over the hill, start up over the hill towards Black Butte Ranch where I play golf, and you take a right on, I can't remember the road now, and it swings around the big left here. So you get about 30 miles in a nice cruising where you can get it up to 50, 60 miles an hour with no problem.
What's the fastest you've gone in it?
The fastest I've ever gone was just under 100. And during, when we moved north, we had a house in Long Beach, and Lynn was a teaching assistant at Long Beach State, and she finished her degree in ZO, and she was working on her master's. So she had a contract, and she taught, I think, 4 or 5 classes. And she did that for 2 or 3 semesters. The last semester, when I got the job offer to come north, she was still under contract. And so I had to drive. I would leave here. For a while, I came in every weekend, and then I started coming on every other weekend. But I would leave the Bay Area around 7 o'clock after traffic would die down, and then take 101 to 152 to 5, and 5 all the way in LA, and I would get here about 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that. I could do that trip in a little over 6 hours, about 6 hours and 20 minutes, and that car would fly. And there was a couple of times I decided, okay, let's see what it would do. So but when you're in a low slung car like that, and it's doing almost 100 miles an hour, which it wasn't having any problem doing, it's just the road comes at you awfully, awfully fast. And it was dark. And I was driving, one night I was driving home from the trip. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, I think. And used to be an area on 101 called Blood Alley that takes you into San Jose. And of course, at that time of night, there's nothing there. And so I was moving in 5th gear at, I think at 2,800 RPM, it does right around 74, 75, and it'll cruise like that. And you'll get about 25 miles to the gallon. And I was cruising along there. There was nothing there. I was tired. And then the lights hit me from behind, and they pulled me over. The 2 highway patrols, they were very excited, and I was tired. And they asked me if I would mind getting out of the car. They wanted to know everything that I could tell them about the Porsche. They wanted to look at the engine. And so we must have talked for 20 minutes. And they wanted everything to know about the Porsche and what did I think about it and so forth and so on. And I thought, well, good, I'm not getting a ticket out of this. And at the end, they gave me a ticket. And the guy said, well, you don't have any points. We checked your record, so all you can do is take a class. It won't be a big deal. So
That's a good story.
yeah.
Well, I think it's about concludes my battery life here. And first of all, I want to say thank you very much, and for the beers, which you made.
Yep.
You brewed.
How was it?
Excellent. 6% IPA. Or is it an IPA?
Pilsner.
Pilsner. Oh, got it. Okay.
Pilsner.
6%.
Noble hops.
That's that's high alcohol for a Pilsner, but yeah, it was good. And more, you got wine in there and all that. So let's get back to the car, and thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Any final words?
It's been a great car. It's just, there are more memories in that car than I'll ever be able to think through all of them. I mean, it's just.
And isn't our life just memories mostly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it has a special spot because the semiconductor industry during that period of time was absolutely, it ate its young. The factories that I ran they ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you were a factory manager or an engineering manager like I spent my time, you were working 60 hours, 65 hours a week, every single week. You were lucky if you got any vacation. It would not be unusual for me to basically leave that place at 9 o'clock at night, go find some place to eat, come back at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was basically any time that I didn't have to be on that factory floor, the car was the other part of me, basically. So anything, you know, going to tennis, I could put my golf clubs in the side. Anything that I did, basically, it was work, that car, and whatever time that I could manage. So, and everybody loved that car. It was, it was, in my opinion, there's only two really good cars that Porsche's ever made, and that was the 356 models. Those were unique in their own way. They weren't racing cars, but they were a statement car. And the 911 was a performance car. Now, at the time that it was out, the only thing that could keep up with it was Firebirds and Corvettes, and surprisingly a BMW 2001. But none of them could corner. And while the other ones had more horsepower and could go faster in a straight line, they couldn't stay with you. And this reminds me of an old story that we used to drive down to Lynn's parents for Christmas. And we would come down from San Jose, down 101, cross over 46 from Paso Robles. And we were coming down, and it was in the early, I'm guessing it was 10 o'clock or something like that. And I was cruising about 75, and I'm watching the rear because the Highway Patrol works that area. And I see this guy coming in an old Falcon is what it looked like. And he's steadily coming up my rear end. So when he gets within about 50 yards, I can see him, and it's a black guy, and he's got a big smile on his face, and he's gonna drive up my ass. So I was doing 70, so I kicked it right to 75, and he fell behind, and slowly but surely he started gathering. He was getting close again. So I thought, I wonder how long before his engine blows. So I kicked it up to 80, and we went through that whole thing again. Then I kicked it up to 85, and he's slowly coming back up again. I don't know how this car was making it. Then I looked way behind him, and I could see the low-slung bodies of the Oldsmobiles that the Highway Patrol did, and he was flat moving. So we were just making the turn into King City, this big sweeping turn that crosses the river, and I saw a bunch of cars up ahead, and I managed to get up there, slide in between them, pop the clutch, lower the gear, and not use any brake lights, and he went flying by me with a big smile and a wave. 2 miles down the road, the Highway Patrol had him pulled over. The poor guy looked like his life was over. He was just
Never, moral of the story, never race a Porsche.
Oh, I really felt sorry for him because he had, the expression in his face was, I beat a Porsche in my little
Everybody wants to.
And everybody wanted to, and now he's going to get, and since he was probably doing 20 or 25 over, he's going to get a big ticket, and maybe they even told him.
And he's telling that story somewhere to his grandkids. And with that, we're going to sign out.
Okay.
Howard Jameson, Bend, Sisters, Oregon, and the beers are done. Time for more beer.